I've always been a fan of yours.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, thank you
Yeah.
so much. I really, that means so
for
much to me. Seriously,
No,
thank
for
you so
real, man.
much.
You always
See you.
ask such
And
great
I've
questions.
always been interested about the physicality of performances and kind of how that informs you as actors about who your character is based on the way they move. Like the way your character rides a sandworm, the way he does the sand walk, and for you, the way he fights, the way he does, like the way he screams, he sticks out his tongue. These are just very interesting physical movements. I'm just curious how each of you view those movements and how those inform you as to who your character is, like the way he rides that worm, the way he...
Man, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to talk about with other actors and performance. You know, I wouldn't relate this immediately to the physicality of our performances, nor would I ever put myself in the boxes of such legends. But, you know, I've talked about it a million times with The Dark Knight's one of my favorite films that I grew up on. And I think there's something to the stoicness that Christian Bale plays Bruce Wayne with that contrasts like so beautifully with the sort of wild nature of Heath Ledger's performance. And I do see something similar in this film where I think Paul Atreides is, if not always a hero, obviously, especially with what's to come, is a sort of a moral center in some capacity, almost like a bass line on a guitar or something.
Yeah.
And that Fade Ralph is terror embodied.
Pinch harmonics on a guitar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
That's exactly how I
yeah.
see it. You know, like a, yeah, sort of like terrifying vision of a skewed messianic figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about for you, the way he fights, the way he moves, like the tongue sticking out? I think that to me was like just such a shocking image.
That was something that we were doing in the camera test, because we were testing out to see, do we like the black teeth? Should I just have my teeth? Well, you know, and then during that I was doing these expressions, and then Denise said, "What if he has a tick?"
That's crazy.
You know, and there's this tick that he has that comes out, and so that became kind of part of it, you know, of moments with a heightened emotion that lead to this tick coming out, and but yeah, you're always just finding, like, you know, the voice helped a lot to find my way in, and then those physicality things and the way he walks. And
One thing you're curious about as actors is your relationship to your DP. And then when you see the final product and you hear your performance set to a score, but like when you look at Bob Richardson on like Quentin, on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you look at Hoytema on Interstellar, and obviously Greg Fraser here. What is your relationship like with the DP on set? Are you interested at all in knowing how you're being framed, how they're doing it? Like, do you geek out at all about that kind of stuff? I'm just curious what your relationship is with that.
with that stuff.
Yeah, I'm a geek as well in that regard, but not in trying to understand like the practicalities. Like I think Zendaya and Austin. I mean, my immediate memories are Zendaya really wants to know to a definitional. That's not a word, but she wants to know the definitions of each thing going on. For me, it's more like on a film of this size or scale, or like Interstellar or Wonka, you kind of need to know what's going on in the frame. And I actually feel like Greg Fraser, particularly in our fight, I don't know if you remember, there was like one of the last shots in our sequence, and he literally just told me a thing about the light and how it was. It was like, and it wasn't a necessity. It was more just like, hey, if you want to catch this more, it'll actually be helpful. And whereas I find in the smaller films I've done that are more, you know, fly on the wall, it's actually crucial to kind of not know what's in the frame, and that it really is just a slice of life. But here you have, I believe you kind of have to know what's going on.
I agree. It's different every time. There are films.
Richardson, though, man.
I mean,
freaking
Richardson is
out.
amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Dude.
To watch him light a set is incredible, and then his energy on set, and I mean, he's just such a legend. Same thing with Greg Fraser on this. You know, it was amazing seeing him and Denis work together, and setting up a shot and the collaboration between the two of them, and then also just like what Timothy was saying, you know, with this, there are a lot of other projects where I don't want to watch playback or anything, but the composition of each shot is so specific. And so the angle of your head, the angle of the way that the roof line is framed, or whatever these things are, there were moments that Greg would say, "You see this? This is the line here," and then you kind of, it just opens you up to realizing you're part of the architecture of the entire frame, you know. So yeah, it really it's an amazing thing watching a cinematographer like that.
There's a quote that Frank Herbert wrote, which is actually in the first Dune as well, which is, "The mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience." And I find that to be a really interesting quote because it was written in the 60s, and I think that applies so much to today about living in the moment and being present. As actors who have worked in this Dune world now, I'm just curious what that line means to you on a personal level, how you experience your own life, and kind of how you maybe stop to try and process it and be in it.
Wow, what a great quote to pull from the book. That's always a quote that's jumped out to me too. I don't know how I could relate it to my life, but at least in relating it to the tone of film and how to engage with it as an actor, it's necessary. You know, so much of Dune's about plans behind plans and politics, and while there's no way to precisely play that, it's so important that as an actor you make sure the questions are there as guides and not necessarily to be answered. And that's something on other movies isn't necessarily true, but here the reality of the film or what your character's going through is to be experienced, as opposed to the idea that, oh, well, if Paul has visions of the future, he has the answers, and that would come with a sense of calmness, because he doesn't know if he's on a gilded path, all the more so when Fade Routha comes in the picture and is on the same path, and could very well spell the end of Paul. But I love that you pulled that quote. It's always a quote that's really stayed with me from the book.
It's just such a true statement, you know. I mean, the idea of life being this experience that you're just one step at a time every day, and you start focusing on all the problems, you know, and then you miss all the things to be grateful for.
Congrats to you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Love talking to you guys
Thank
about
you.
filmmaking.
Yeah.
Nice to talk to
Appreciate
you,
you guys.
man.
Always
Great
pleasure
to see
talking to
you.
you
Great
guys.
to see you.
I've always
Great to see you, man.
I've always been a fan of yours.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, thank you
Yeah.
so much. That means so much to me. Seriously,
Oh,
thank you
for
so
real, man.
much.
You always
See you.
ask such
And
great
I want
questions.
more. I love filmmaking, and I love when I see a film put together fully. But as actors, you're on set, you're filming your performances, and then eventually it gets edited, it gets scored by the incredible Hans Zimmer. But I was always wondering an actor's relationship to the image that you finally see in a movie and the music that you actually hear set to your performances. I mean, the DPs that you've worked with, from Hoytema, obviously Greg Fraser, Marcel Rev. I mean, these are like some of the greatest DPs of our time. And I just wonder what your relationship is with your director of photography when you're acting, and also your composer, and what it feels like to see your performance on screen set to score.
I love cinematography. I feel like you mentioned Marcel. I love Marcel. He's like family, and he was actually in Budapest when we were shooting. Yeah, and he was like, "What's this lighting setup like? What are they like?" You know, and I was like, "Oh, I'll try to take a picture." You know, yeah, it's extraordinary what they're able to do, and I love asking questions, and I love being on set.
So you
watching them
do
work.
watch and.
Oh, 1,000%.
That's cool.
I came to set. I asked before I was like, is it okay if I be in your guys' tent and just watch? I will be quiet, I'll be out of your way, but like when I'm not, you know, if I'm not working, I'd love to just watch you guys do what you do, because I love the filmmaking process. So yeah, I'd bring my cameras to set, and I'd be put to shame with Greg's photography and cameras, and he'd show me, you know, the different things he took. Oh, I just got the film back, and I was like, okay, throw all my cameras away. You know what I mean? What are you shooting with? Yeah, like, and that process is really fun, because I think there's such a joy in there, and they love sharing their work with you. Like if you ask questions and they're so passionate about it, he was like, of course, I'll tell you what kind of camera I use and this, and that was really, really a treat for me, at least, to be able to kind of pick their brains. And there was one day that I came on set and I brought like my little camera, and I remember them like immediately the sound of it, like Denis and like they were like, wait a minute, where did you get one of those? And they're like, can we use that? And I was like, yeah, go ahead. Oh. You know? Yeah, it was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what about for you, like with Hoytema? Like I saw Oppenheimer so many times, so and Ludwig's score, but like your connection to those elements of your performance that you end up seeing in the final product.
Yeah, I think as Zendaya was saying, you're given this unbelievable opportunity to be around some of the best professionals in the world of cameras, and like you get to be up close and listen and learn and watch. And I've had some, like on Oppenheimer, I had a mad experience where in the middle of our sex scene, the camera broke.
Right, I heard about
It broke, and the other one was in the shot being fixed. And I remember I was just like,
Well, this timing
Okay.
is great.
and anyway, so Chris comes up and he's like, sorry guys, the camera's it's letting in too much light and the film is. Anyway, this man comes in with a toolbox, like a little. He's like a doctor, like a camera doctor, and he opens the side. He's like, and I'm like, oh my god, what is going on? And he starts, and I just like, all right, here's my opportunity to learn about how it broke. So I go over and I'm like, what you doing there?
Right.
And Chris is brilliant, knows all the answers, and it's just like, yeah, what a unique, bizarre
Right.
situation to learn. And then I watch that scene, I'm like.
That's
In the middle of that scene, I got a 50-minute lesson on how the camera
Camera
broke.
work.
Is this the Destroyer of Worlds scene? When you pass him the book?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's
when I've got
crazy.
when I'm going to the bookshelf.
And the idea that the audio from that is then later played,
Yeah.
and you can
Yeah.
hear him falling back on the bed.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Yeah.
This man knows his
I am nerding out. So, there's a line that Frank Herbert wrote in the book that's also in the first film that I've been thinking about a lot, which is the mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience. And I think that that's written in 1965, and I think that applies so much to where we are today and kind of living in the moment and kind of going along with the flow of the process. But I'm curious for each of you what that line means to you on a personal level, like how you approach your life and the way you
Say it again, just so I've got it ringing in my
Yeah,
head.
The mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience.
Wow.
It's actually in the first movie too. It's a great line.
Yeah. I mean, how do I break that down? How do I fit? How does that slot into my life?
Yeah, how do you does that apply to the?
I mean, it totally does because of the world that we live in, the career that we've chosen. There's a lot of it that could become quite fast and could go unnoticed with the speed of it. And I think that's probably something that you constantly have to go through in the motion and enjoy and make sure you're awake to it. I think I don't know if I'm actually just rambling now, but in terms of last year I made like a what's it called when you put it into the ether it's like manifest. I really wanted to manifest that I'm awake in every decision that I do, and it's when you're busy and going through what we're doing, like it's very easy to coast and just like be put into all these different rooms and do things. And I really want to make sure that I'm awake and I'm conscious of everything that is happening to me. And I think that kind of for me that kind of relates to that. It's like it's a choice to be here, and it's a choice to be awake, and what a journey that would be if you are conscious of every single thing happening. So I think that's my answer. I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, it's hard. That's
It's
a big
hard.
quote.
Yeah, that's a big one to answer.
For you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm while you're talking, I'm like,
What am I gonna say?
Because she's really handling this well. I don't know. I think for me, I think that's probably something that I'm still understanding about life and trying to figure out. I think my where I have Virgo brain or whatever is that I am always trying to figure out that thing and try to overly, like I think what you're saying is just like to live and to be inside the moment. I think sometimes I'm so hard on myself and I'm so hyper focused on every little detail of life that I'm not able to just be there and experience and enjoy things, you know, because I've thought about it so much before I got there that once it's already over, you're like, oh dang, that already happened, and I didn't even get a chance to
enjoy it.
Yeah.
Smell the roses,
Smell the
as my
roses.
dad says.
I'm going to start off with a line that I think is amazing that Frank wrote years ago in the book, which is the mystery of life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience, which is obviously a line in your first Dune as well. After making these two films, what does that line mean to you on a personal level, and how you live your life and how you experience your own life?
It's a very I'm moved that you're talking about that, because the more I grow up, the more I'm focusing on the process.
Yes.
The more I'm focusing on the making of movies, and once they are made, the way they will be received by the world in a few weeks or days. I have no control over that, and I need to be at peace with the outcome and focus on what the movie brought to me as a filmmaker and human being.
And be one with the process. That's a really beautiful thing. I was lucky enough to see the first Dune in 1:4:3 IMAX, and it was remarkable because the narrative reasons that you use to punch to those IMAX scenes, like when Paul's dreaming and we go boom right to the 1:4:3. And last night I saw the second one, 1:9:0, so it led me to a question of whether or not the new one, this one, is going to be full 1:4:3 the entire movie. And how did you make the narrative decisions about the IMAX?
For part one, what we did is that we used everything that the interiors or everything that involved technology was mostly seen in 2:3:5, and the IMAX was for nature and space. And the idea is that it's very interesting to play with formats like that because it's like an additional way to create emotions and impact, and so to play with formats like that, we did part one this week. For part two, which is a movie that happened mostly in the desert, we shot the movie and all in IMAX, but to recreate what you're talking about, that rhythm, I shot in 1:4:3 and 1:9:0. So there's no 2:3:5. If people go to see the full IMAX experience, instead of going from IMAX to cinema, the scope, it will go from IMAX to a little less IMAX. It was just to embrace the power of the desert, but still to keep that rhythmic that creates something in the subconscious when you receive the amount of light in your face. Yeah.
As a fan, can you please get the home video release to have the 178 jump to the IMAX? Because the first Blu-ray didn't have those jumps, and I'm hoping that the second video home release...
There will be, I think that IMAX are planning to do a release of the Blu-rays with, I think we did it for part one. But, sorry, there were so many formats but I think they did it, but you'll never have the same impact at home that you have in front of an IMAX theater. There's something there that it's unmatchable. Yeah, but you're supposed to have a version that exists right now for part one. Yeah.
I would love. You know, one thing I want to bring up to you is I've been looking at your films for years. Obviously, Enemy, going forward, Incendies, everything that you've done. But one thing I love about your directing is that we spend a lot of time with characters while they're traveling to places. So, for example, like in Sicario, when they're driving to Juarez, we're sitting in the car with Emily and everybody. It's very character-driven. And then even like Ryan Gosling when he's entering the city after the opening of Blade Runner 2049, and in the first Dune when they're in the Ornithopter and you're kind of looking for the worms. Like, we're traveling with people as they're experiencing the world, and we get to sit in these moments. And I was just wondering, as a filmmaker, your narrative decision to kind of sit with characters while they travel and they experience the world.
The only thing that popped up in my mind is that at the end of the day, I'm a tourist. I mean, I'm someone that I experienced the world. I've been many times in contact with foreign cultures, where the moment where you slowly dive and the tension that is created by getting slowly and getting closer to something is something that deeply inspires me. That's the thing I would say. Yeah.
And last question for you is the infrared. I was going to ask about the infrared.
Yeah, go.
Oh, thank you. I have to ask you about the infrared that you use for the black and white, because Greg Fraser, to me, is one of the greatest DPs of all time. And when we're dealing with those sequences, the black and white is it's like bleak and just brutal and like honest. And I just wondered, like, can you talk a little bit about how the infrared worked? Because I saw you talk a little bit about this recently.
I wanted to shoot Gady Pride in black and white. I brought this idea to Greg. He was very excited, and he brought the idea of infrared, because the idea was to create an eerie black and white where the skin become translucent and the eyes are becoming very dark and aggressive, and there was something that will create, that will bring the necessary alien feeling of a different world where you have the sun will cut out colors, and I thought that will inform us a lot about the psyche of the Harkonnens. Yeah.
That's amazing. Congratulations to you. Thank you for making me love movies and go to the movies. So I appreciate you.
Oh, you're sweet.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.